Just a few weeks ago, Tiffany Henyard had her world rocked when she was removed from the ballot for the Thornton Township supervisor position. Now, why is this important? Because she makes about $250,000 a year in this position, along with her position as the mayor of the village of Dalton. She's pulling in around $300,000 a year. But if she loses this election as the township supervisor, she's going to go from the penthouse to the poorhouse relatively quickly. Let's look and see where we were a few weeks ago.
Thornton Township Supervisor Tiffany Henyard, who was appointed to that position tonight, lost her bid for the Democratic Party's nomination in this rarely used political process. It now appears if she wants to run for supervisor again, it will have to be as a write-in candidate. That is the sound of an auditorium full of Tiffany Henyard opponents rejecting her nomination for Thornton Township Supervisor in the party's first township caucus in decades.
You ain't let the people be heard.
As she protested the process, arguing her supporters were still waiting to be let inside.
Guys, have a good night, eat the food, and be merry. This meeting is adjourned.
The meeting lasted only moments, but it was strategized beforehand. State Senator Napoleon Harris is the Democratic committeeman for Thornton Township. He alone decides whether to hold a primary election or a caucus. Amid the turmoil tied to embattled Supervisor Henyard, Harris chose a caucus and won the nomination.
Democratic nominee for supervisor is Napoleon Harris.
Henyard walked out of the meeting and into a waiting SUV without speaking to us.
Okay, just from that clip, what happened was patently obvious. Tiffany Henyard got outplayed, outpoliticked, and out hustled with regard to her position. She thought she could control the purse strings of what went on within the township, but Napoleon Harris had otherwise. He's more savvy, more experienced, has more resources. Everybody is excited in the village and elated, even though we don't know what Napoleon Harris's positions are with regard to the township. I think most people within the township are just like anybody but her, which may or may not be a good thing. That's for a later video. However, Tiffany Henyard isn't completely ridiculous. Every now and then, a broke clock is right twice a day. She utilized political gamesmanship to do the exact same thing that Napoleon Harris did to her. She used the rules, the processes, and the procedures to get some of her opponents for the supervisor of Thornton Township off of the ballot to kind of thin out the herd. Now, whether she's on the ballot, that's the subject of litigation that we talked about before. Hey, myself as well as co-counsel, we all thought that it was a losing argument when we went through the actual complaint. I'll put the link to that video below. So let's take a look at how Tiffany Henyard used a little political gamesmanship in the rules and processes to get some of her political ops out of the way. Let's get it.
Mr. Nate Fields' name will not appear on the ballot.
Allies of Thornton Township Supervisor Tiffany Henyard were successful in getting some of her challengers kicked off the April 1st general election ballot.
Based on those things alone, this document should be overruled.
Resident Michael Smith was behind many of today's objections. After a short hearing, the Electoral Board voted to remove Nate Fields Jr.'s name from the ballot. He was running for supervisor.
I don't think this is fair. I think we're making a big mistake right now.
Fields Jr. is vowing to appeal the decision, which was based on the board's belief that he missed key procedural steps in the filing process.
The one particular what was it, the statement of candidacy, wasn't binded properly to the rest of the petition packet.
The meeting began this morning and took place in the township's headquarters in South Suburban South Holland. Two other supervisor candidates were kicked off the ballot because of not having enough nominating signatures and other issues.
The total number of valid signatures.
This all comes as Henyard is working to get herself on the ballot after losing in a rare Democratic caucus vote a few weeks ago to represent the party. State Senator Napoleon Harris ended up being nominated as the Democratic challenger. Since Since then, Henyard filed multiple lawsuits against both the Thornton Township Democratic Party and Harris.
I'm gonna run 17 different cities, including my own, Dalton, and people want to control it.
Tiffany Henyard is still facing FBI scrutiny for her handling of finances as township supervisor and as mayor of Dalton, but has denied any wrongdoing.
I think it's universally understood that no one really wants Tiffany Henyard to run this municipality, let alone their own municipality, if we're looking from somewhere outside of Dalton in the Thornton Township. But this was an instance where, hey, she learned the lesson. She said, you know what? They didn't follow the rules, so they shouldn't be on the ballot. It's actually a really good argument that she made to get those ops who would essentially muddy up the waters when it came down to the election for supervisor, to get them off of the ballot. They didn't have the signatures, their paperwork weren't in order. So it was a smart move. The ironic thing about it is the same thing that she's used to get these ops off of the ballot is the same thing that's going to be used against her. She didn't have a full slate. She didn't have a proper assessor. And I'm going to give y'all the Reader's Digest version. Her argument in that case was solely based on a previous court's finding that requiring a third-party candidate to run on a slate was unconstitutional because third parties normally don't have that many viable candidates to fill out a slate. What's wrong with that argument? I think you all heard it already. The issue with the argument, why we concluded that it's going to be a piss poor argument, is because she is not a third party candidate. She's running as a Democrat. Democrats have a crap load of people who they can use to fill out a slate. And because of that, the court is likely not going to find that the requirement for a slate is unconstitutional, because they're not talking about two established parties, Republican or Democrat. They're talking about those third parties, Libertarian, Orange Party, the rent is too damn high party. You all let me know what you think in the comments. Hey, she used some political gamesmanship, but at the end of the day, that same logic that she used to get rid of her ops is the exact logic that's going to be used to punt her lawsuit out of court. I'm Marcus, and if you enjoyed this content, make sure you check out the content on the screen. There's going to be more content related to attorney reactions. Y'all take care and have a happy holidays. Peace.